Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Verona. My name 33190025. My class D33.5E.07. Today presentation about English drama. Playwriter in Greek theater. Euripides was the youngest of the three great tragedians, born in the 482 BCE. Euripides first competed in the Great Dionysia in 455. He competed 21 more times, but won only four times, including with the tetralogy that included Bacchae and Libiginia at Aulis, produced after his death in 406. Most of what has come down to us as Euripides' biography is pieced together from jokes made about him in comedies, and thus is not particularly reliable. He seems not to have taken part in public life. He may have had a bad marriage, and one of his sons, or nephew, was a tragic poet too. There is also some evidence that he may have been an intellectual recluse, and he perhaps had a large library. The ancients criticized his plays for being too pedestrian and too easily resolved. Euripides also had a reputation for literary misogyny, but modern audience might wonder at such a charge leveled against the creator of the heroines of Alcestis, Melia, Iphigenia, at Aulis, and Hecuba. The first Greek tragedian, Aeschylus, was born around 525 BCE. He produced his first dramas in 498, and he had his first victory in 484. We know he was still working in 458 when he produced his trilogy Orestia. Aeschylus actually fought in the front lines against the Persians at Marathon in 490. We don't know much about the rest of his life, but we do know that his Persians, financed by Pericles, was such a success that he was invited to Sicily by Hieron of Syracuse to restake it. He did in Sicily, having returned there sometimes after 458. His tombstone mentioned that he was an Athenian and that he fought at Marathon, but does not mention his place. His life bridged the archaic and classical ages, and Aeschylus' plays reflect that fact, considered even by the ancients to be difficult and old-fashioned. Aeschylus was also quite innovative in the structures, personal, and even subject of his plays. He wrote around 89 plays, of which we have only 7. Of tragedy and why the tragic drama becomes famous in the Greek theater. The exact origin of trageda are debated among scholars. Some have linked the rise of the genre, which began in Athens, to the earlier art form, the lyrical performance of epic poetry. Others suggest a strong link with the rituals performed in the worship of Dionysus, such as the sacrifice of gods, a song ritual called Tragodia, and the wearing of masks. Indeed, Dionysus became known as the god of theater, and perhaps there is another connection: the dream rites, which result in the worshipper losing full control of their emotion and in effect becoming another person, much as actors Hippocrates hope to do when performing. The music and dance of Dionysiac ritual was most evident in the role of the chorus and the music provided by an oboe player, but rhythmic elements were also preserved in the use of verse, trochaic tetrameter, and then iambic trimeter in the delivery of the spoken word. Perform the drama at the Greek theatre gives detailed information. Greek plays were performed in an outdoor theater, use mass, and we almost always performed by a chorus and three actors. No matter how many speaking characters there were in the play, only three actors were used. The actors would go backstage after playing one character, which mask and costumes and repair as another character. Greek plays were performed as part of religious festival in honor of the god Dionysus, and unless later revived, were performed only once. Plays were funded by the police and always presented in competition with other plays and were fought either the first, second, or third last place. Tragedies almost exclusively dealt with stories from the mythic past. There was no contemporary tragedy. Comedies almost exclusively with contemporary figures and problems. Colosseum or Flavian Amphitheater. The Colosseum, officially opened in 80 CE and known to the Romans as the Flavian Amphitheater, is the largest and most famous example with a capacity of at least 500 50,000 spectators, dwarfing all other buildings in the city. It was 45 meters high and measured 189 x 156 meters across. It had up to 80 entrances, and the sanded arena itself measures a massive 87.5 meter by 54.8 meter. On the upper story platform, sailors were employed to manage the large awning Valerium, which protected the spectators from rain or provided shade on hot days. Theater exterior Verona. The arena of Verona measures 552 x 123 meters and was third biggest after the Colosseum and Capua. It is another excellent example of the features involved in a Roman amphitheater. It was constructed in the first century CE using a cement rubble mix known as a post cementricum brick and stone box set in square pillars to create an external facade of 3 levels of 72 arches, each spanning 2 meters and creating a total height of over 30 meters. The lowest arches lead directly to an interior corridor 5.5 meters wide, which runs around the arena. From this corridor, steps lead upwards at regular intervals and on 4 different levels to form vomitoria exit, which give access to the interior cavea inside. The seats were arranged in 4 elliptic rings, giving a total of 44 rows of seating. Dionysus, or Dionysus was the Olympian god of wine, vegetation, pleasure, festivity, madness, and wild frenzy. He was depicted as either an older, bearded god or an effeminate, long-haired youth. His attributes included the Thyrsos, a pine-cone-tipped staff, a drinking cup, and a crown of ivy. Writer in Elizabeth Theatre, Ben Jonson. Ben Jonson was born in 1472 in Westminster, near London. His stepfather was a master bricklayer, and Jonson briefly took up this trade in his youth. He also spent a brief time as a soldier, returning to England and marrying sometimes prior to 1582. Upon his return to England, Jonson became an actor, and by 1587 was working as a dramatist for the theatrical entrepreneur Philip Henslowe. Jonson's first play, co-written with Thomas Nisi in 1587, was The Isle of Dogs. It was deemed offensive and landed Jonson in jail for a brief time. Then in 1598, Jonson was arrested for killing a fellow actor in a duel. That same year, however, Jonson also gained his first dramatic success with the play Every Man in His Humour. This play was the first instance of a new comic form that came to be known as the comedy humorous, and it turned him into a celebrity. Jonson became a favorite of King James I and wrote over 30 masques for a court performance. In 1618, King James I made him put laureate, the official put of the court. The position also came with an annual pension, allowing Jonson to live out his life comfortably. Jonson suffered and severe stroke in 1062, 628, and died in Westminster on August 6, 1637. Webster. John Webster was born in the late 1570s or early 1580 to a coachmaker and the doctor of a blacksmith near London. Perhaps because of his low station, not much was recorded about Webster's life. Webster married Sarah Peniel in March 1606, and they had several children. Beginning in 1602, he worked with themes of playwright on comedies and historic plays for the popular theatre, but his lasting fame was made by his writing two tragedies, The White Devil and The Disease of Malfi, both of which derive from Italian stories. The White Devil, first performed in 1611, was a failure with audience because it was so unusual. The Disease of Malfi was more successful with its first staging 2 years later. Some scholars have argued that Webster's work is Gothic in nature, predating that movement by more than 100 years. Webster continued to write through the 1620, but by 1634, as record by his contemporary Thomas Heywood. He was dead. His plays, especially the two tragedies, continued to be staged throughout the 20th and into the 21st centuries to audiences that can appreciate Webster's grim vision and complex intellectual writing. The son and heir of Montague and Lady Montague, a young man of about 16, Romeo is handsome, intelligent, and sensitive, though impulsive and immature. His idealism and passion make him an extremely likable character. He lives in the middle of a violent fight between his family and the Capulets, but he is not not at all interested in violence. His only interest is love. At the beginning of the play, he is madly in love with a woman named Rosalind, but instead he lays eyes on Juliet. He falls in love with her and forgets Rosalind. Thus, Shakespeare gave us every reason to question how real Romeo's new love is, but Romeo goes to extremes to prove the seriousness of his feelings. He secretly marries Juliet, the daughter of his father's worst enemy. He happily takes a vows from Tybalt, and he would rather die than live without his beloved. Romeo is also an affectionate and devout friend to his relative Benvolio, Mercutio, and Friar Lawrence, the daughter of Capulet and Lady Capulet. A beautiful 13-year-old girl, Juliet begins to play as a naive child who has thought little about love and marriage, but she grows up quickly upon falling in love with Romeo, the son of her family's great enemy. Because she is a girl in an aristocratic family, she has none of the freedom Romeo has to roam around their city, climb over walls in the middle of the night, or get into sword fights. Nevertheless, she shows amazing courage in trusting her entire life and future to Romeo, even refusing to believe the worst reports about him after he gets involved in a fight with her cousin. Juliet's close friends and confidant is her nurse, though she's willing to shut the nurse out of her life the moment the nurse turns against Romeo. The condition of England in the Black Death Plague and how they can solve that problem. A very popular fate befell the lower class and most of the middle class. Most of them remained at home, living with poverty and the desire for salvation from those who fell ill. They did not get care and attention. All the plague sufferers died. Many live on the streets and by day, dying in their no-dead homes as neighbors smell the stains of rotting corpses. Those who are increasingly concerned are moved by religious charity will kill rotting corpses. With the help of the porters, they carried the corpse, which was affected by the plague, out of the house and placed it at the door. Europeans began to change their point of view to astrology, earthquakes, and the well which the Jews desecrated as the cause of the plague. Government in Europe can solve the problem because they don't know about the causes and how it spread. The mechanism of the spirit of the playboy in the 14th century was not understood by people at the time. Many people that then blame that this is God's anger. It becomes the obstacle in the Elizabeth period because there was a danger that England would fall into a war of religion. There was brutal conflict between Protestants and Catholics in Europe at the time. What is Puritan? The Puritans were English Protestants in the 16th and 17th centuries who sought to purify the Church of England of Roman Catholic practice, mentioning that the Church of England had not been fully reformed and should become more Protestant. Thus, the Puritans hate the theatre because that secular entertainment distracts people from worshipping God. Although they also felt that the theatre's growing popularity symbolized the moral evils of city life. Learn about theatre, the size, the condition, and diagram of theatre in Elizabeth period. The Red Lion was an Elizabeth playhouse located in Mile and part of the modern borough of Tower Hamlets, just outside the city of London. Built in 1567 by John Bryan, formerly a grazier. This theatre was a short-lived attempt to provide a purpose-built playhouse for the many touring theatrical companies. The Red Lion had been a farm with a single gallery multi-sided theatre with a fixed stage 40 feet by 30 feet, standing 5 feet above the audience, was built in the garden of the farmhouse. The stage was equipped with trapdoors and an attached turret or fly tower for aerial stunts, and to advertise its presence to construction costs 20, and while it appears to have been a commercial success, the Red Lion offered little that the prior tradition of playing in inns had not offered, and it was too far from its audience to be attractive. At the time, the area was open farmland for visiting in the winter. There is little documentary evidence that it survived beyond the summer season of 1567. More about the Renaissance period and what is the effect of the Renaissance. The Renaissance was a fervent period of European culture, artistic, political, and economic rebirth following the Middle Ages, generally described as taking place from the 14th century to the 16th century. The Renaissance promoted the rediscovery of classical philosophy, literature, and art. Some of the greatest thinkers, authors, statesmen, and artists in human history thrived during this era. While global exploration opened up new lands and cultures to European commerce, the Renaissance is credited with bridging the gap between the Middle Ages and modern-day civilization.